shit.
Cáchense todos estos milicos, weón, caminando en Avenida Grecia, weón. Mira los culiados. Gracias, Piñera. ¿Ah? Gracias, Piñera. Mira.
A ver, está la patada en el Parque Baquedano, cabros. No pudimos ni llegar a la Plaza Italia, weón.
Hey everybody on YouTube, long time no see. It's me, Rachel, the student witch. Cheers. I'm drinking some ginger lemon tea because my stomach was feeling weird earlier. Yeah, welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry it's been a while since I've been able to find the time, but also have my thoughts organized and have the energy to sit down and record a video. Luna, as you can see, is joining me here. That's why I'm sitting on our living room rug right now. And, you know, yeah, it's just been wild, and my content uploading has been erratic, and I'm sorry about that. But it's just been a wild ride, and actually that leads me into today's video. Our first full 365 days, our first full year of living in Chile. I think another reason why I've been kind of late with uploading this video, because our 1-year anniversary was actually June 22nd. So we're a full month later, but a part of the reason why it's taken me a month to get around to this is because I just didn't know how to make sense of it. I needed some time for myself to kind of process it, and making this video and the preparation going into the very loose, light amount of preparation that went into making this video kind of gave me the perfect excuse to kind of absorb the lessons I've learned in the past year, to see all the change and growth that I've gone through in the past year, to see and just emotionally, mentally, physically process, you know, this new normal that we find ourselves in across the world, to process all the political revolutions that, you know, it's been real. So it was good for me to take the time to do that, so now I can try to put together a somewhat coherent video. Hopefully not too long, because I don't want my camera battery to die on me. But yeah, this is just going to be a casual conversation. I did not prepare like a strict outline for what I wanted to talk about in this video. I just wanted to see what would come up and just see what I needed to say. But at the end, toward the end, I am going to talk about the content that I would like to make going forward, I have a list of content and videos I would like to make that will probably carry me into next year, honestly. But yeah, we'll talk about that toward the end of the video. For anyone who's fairly new to my channel, welcome. In case you don't know, I am a US citizen, and I 6 years ago married a Chilean citizen, and because of the requirements for his visa, we had to move down here to Santiago, Chile. And we scheduled it to happen while I was working on my doctoral dissertation. So the move to Chile happened. We got on the plane on June 21st, 2019, which was the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. And we landed here in Santiago. It's an overnight flight. We landed here in Santiago on the morning of June 22nd, you know, right around the time of the winter solstice here in the southern hemisphere. And I have a kind of a particular attachment and affinity for the solstices because my birthday is on a solstice. It's on the December solstice. So for most of my life, I celebrated my birthday in the northern hemisphere with the winter solstice. And that to me, the winter solstice, whether it happens in December or June, depending on which hemisphere I'm in, the winter solstice to me feels particularly transformative and witchy. I guess it's that kind of return of the sun, the rebirth of light that happens, and just the darkness that comes before that light can be reborn kind of thing. That imagery I really vibe well. That transformative imagery. I'm a Sagittarius. My sun sign, anyway, is a Sagittarius, and I actually have 4 planets in Sagittarius. So that mutable, transformative, exploration-driven kind of energy or vibe is like, just permeates like every aspect of my being, basically. And so it makes a lot of sense that I'm living in South America right now. I guess, if you look at my birth chart, maybe, I don't know. Lots of exploration, pushing boundaries, pushing myself beyond my own boundaries, transformative, like phoenix, death and rebirth energy. It's just, woo, this whole year really has been just all of that. All of that in ways that I could have never imagined before. So anyway, we arrived on the winter solstice here last year, and going through a whole year of living here and everything we witnessed, like I was saying just now, it's been one huge just death and rebirth process. Talking spiritually and metaphorically about death, because death has also been very real for a lot of people around the planet, you know, like in very tragic and traumatic and scary ways, I imagine. So I'll get into that here in a minute. But the first 6 months of our time here in Chile, really 3 big things happened. One, we arrived and we built a life for ourselves. You know, we arrived with just our backpacks and 4 suitcases, and one of them was filled with all my books, all the books that I could fit into it anyway. And we had to live with my mother-in-law for a month. The month of July, we were living with my mother-in-law while we were, you know, starting my visa process here, shopping for furniture like a bed and a couch to start with, cleaning the apartment here, because luckily we were able to have an apartment waiting for us because a friend of a friend hooked us up with their apartment basically, and so we're renting through them. You know, so just kind of building a life from just whatever you have in your suitcases, was just such a powerful experience. I mean, moving to a new place in general, whether you're moving within town or to a different state or to a different part of your country or to a different country, in my case, and hemisphere, it's such a chance for like a new, fresh start. If you have the opportunity to, you know, changing your living situation or changing things up within your current living situation through, I don't know, like remodeling or redecorating your home or changing just the layout of the home, or, you know, those kind of changes are powerful. You know, they're not just geared towards like comfort or, you know, just setting up home. It's a chance for you to kind of invest in your new home and give yourself a fresh start. And so that from June and July into September, those were like the vibes. I did, you know, they're generally uplifting vibes. I was really proud of myself over how well I took this big change and transition. I did give myself a whole month off from work, from any work on my dissertation. I knew if I told myself I was going to work on my dissertation during that first month we were staying at my mother-in-law's house, I knew I'd be kidding myself, because like between setting up the apartment here and doing a bunch of paperwork and running errands for like getting me health insurance down here, getting my visa process started down here, all of that, like ain't no way in hell I was going to be able to do any research, period. So from July really into September, things were really like going on up, like on an upswing. We moved into our apartment. We were really proud of everything. My partner was working at his new job. And then around mid-October, on October 18th, the revolution started here. It's basically the estallido social, or the social explosion, you know, as they call it on the news, which I've made videos about. Oh, my battery's about to... Okay, where was I? Sorry about that. My battery, even though when I started recording, it said I had 55 minutes worth, but 11 minutes in, and it was down to 4 minutes, and so I had to plug this in. And the last time I plugged in my camera to the little transformer thing that I need to be able to plug it in and charge it, the noise from the transformer, which has like a little fan inside to keep it cool, picked up on the camera. I have it muffled, hopefully, with a blanket, so I hope there's not an annoying like psh sound in the background. If there is, I apologize, but this is what I got to work with, the cheap camera that I bought used a few years ago, so someday I'll get a fancy like Canon something or whatever digital camera, but now is not the time to drop like $500 on a camera, you know, with the economic situation we're dealing with. Anyway, speaking of economics and shitty, you know, unnecessary human suffering and poverty and whatnot, the October Revolution here in Chile, which, as I was saying, I've made a video about my views on the place of the political within the spiritual. You know, to me the political is sacred, and political participation is sacred and important. And so check out this video that I'll link up here if you want to see my thoughts, because I made that video while the revolution was happening, and so it was on my mind. Yeah, the revolution, the rebellion, the estallido social, whatever you want to call it, that happened, the protest movement that happened last October, is just the result of something that's been building for decades. And that's basically, and this is something that a lot of Chileans were saying and putting on to protest, you know, signs and stuff, was that even though the quote-unquote transition to democracy, you know, from the Pinochet dictatorship, which lasted 1973 to 1990, from 1990 onward, there was supposedly a democracy, meaning that the Chileans could vote for their president and whatnot. But they're still functioning, and to this day, they're still functioning under the constitution that was set in place during the dictatorship. All of the neoliberal policies, that were set and put into place during the dictatorship, which was the whole point of the dictatorship, right, was to uphold neoliberal capitalism. All of those policies continued, and so in that sense, the dictatorship never ended. The dictatorship never ended. And, having the current right-wing president and coalition in power here, it's interesting to see history repeating itself, and I never thought that I would see and be able to witness something like this. But, in my classes in grad school and in undergrad and stuff, and talking to people from Chile and from different parts of Latin America, you read the stories and you see the plays and the movies that were made about the Latin American dictatorships that the U.S., at least from like the 1950s into the 1980s, that the U.S. upheld and supported and helped put into place. I'll link just a basic Wikipedia article down below about, I believe it's called, I never remember if it's Project Condor or Operation Condor, but that was basically the U.S.'s imperialist plan throughout Latin America to enforce neoliberal capitalism on everybody. And so they supported right-wing military dictatorships throughout Latin America. And Chile was one of the early ones. Well, in the 70s, it was one of the first ones in the Nixon era. So I've read the history, and I've read the literature and the short stories and the novels and the plays, and I've seen the movies about this, and I never thought that I would see that kind of history repeating itself in such an explicit way, because Piñera and the right-wing coalition in power here, within 24 hours of when the protest movement started on October 18th, by October 19th, if I remember correctly, they sent the military out to suppress the people. And on June 1st, when President Dipshit in my home country in the United States gave his little speech and then decided to put on a little show for the white evangelicals who vote for him, in front of the church, and when the protesters had tear gas and stuff fired upon them, and there were unmarked, weird police force out on the streets, and the president was warning, or threatening rather, to send out the federal military onto U.S. citizens. In the U.S.'s case, at least there was pushback from the military itself. There was a bunch of old retired generals that carry a lot of weight who opposed it, right? In Chile, however, there was no hesitation. The troops were out, bam. And you saw a clip of that in the little intro I made for this video, and that recording was outside of our kitchen window, just a few days into the movement, seeing all those troops and the troops everywhere, and it's significant because this was the first time that the military has been sent out and used this way, and it's the first time that things like toque de queda, or military enforced curfews, have been used since the Pinochet dictatorship. And so here we are 30 years later, and history is repeating itself. And we thought, and a lot of Chileans thought, especially the ones who have been through this before, we thought we were seeing the rise of a new military coup here. And then it happened again in the U.S., seeing the U.S. come this fucking close in early June with President Dipshit threatening to send the military. And, you know, here recently in the news, even a month later, more than a month later, these creepy, you know, unmarked, weird paramilitary people in Portland arresting people. You know, like, I feel like, I don't know. It's just, anyway, I'll get to what happened in the US in May through June here in a minute. I'm just, let me finish my timeline here. That I'm seeing connections and the same pattern, right? And they all come down to white supremacy and the legacy of colonialism that the US continued through its imperialist projects and, like, you know, from the 19th into the 20th century into this day. So I, you know, back in October, witnessing all this happening in Chile, I don't really have words to properly describe that experience. It was, in many ways, it was a good, healthy kick in the butt for me, as in terms of a privilege reminder, you know, because I'm someone from the global north. I'm from the center of the empire, so to speak, right? And coming down here, even if all the political revolutions and if the pandemic didn't happen, you know, coming down here to live in Latin America, in what's considered a developed country within Latin America, but still the standards of living are not the same as in the United States. There are, you know, it's just in so many ways I've been reminded of how privilege works on kind of an international scale, how for many people, not everyone, but for many people in the United States, even working class people in the United States, they have a relative comfort that is higher than other parts of the world. And just coming here to see that and live it and have my lifestyle be radically different, you know, I mean, just in the last year, I've lost about 10 pounds. Not that I needed to lose 10 pounds because I'm a fairly, like, light-built, tall, lanky person, just genetically. But I've lost about 10 pounds just because the lifestyle, like, I don't have a car here. If you want to do anything or go grocery shopping or whatever, you have to do it on foot and on public transportation. Our building doesn't have an elevator. It's not as easy to get takeout food here. You know, it's the lifestyle's just different. There's just, in our building anyway, and it's not very common actually to find. You know, in our building we don't have centralized heat or air conditioning, and that's actually, unless you're in like a mall or a hospital or something, you're not going to get air conditioning here. We don't have a dryer. We use less electricity. We try to make a conscious effort to use as little or as few utilities, especially water, as we can, because Chile is being hit by an epic drought thanks to climate change, you know. It's so different, and my lifestyle's been forced to change, and internally and externally, I've had to go through so many changes, and then witnessing the October crisis, just, you know, on top of kicking me in the butt with those like reminders of global North privilege and how far back that global North versus global South dynamic goes, you know. It's transformative. It's just transformative. And it's one thing to read about it in books, it's another thing to live it and to witness it. And to see how hard people have to fight to, you know, hold on to what little sense of democracy they have left, and how desperate the situation is outside of the global north, but also within the global north, right? It's just, I just feel like in 2020 especially, on top of the immense like death energies, right? There's also, within me anyway, within me, there's an immense sense of urgency about the necessary changes we need to make as a world, as societies on this planet. You know, it's just urgency. It's immediate. It's now. Like, now is the time. Now, not tomorrow. Now. You know. Anyway, if you want to learn more about my thoughts and hear more of my reflections on what we witnessed here in October and why it's significant and big and important, check out the video I linked here. And then, you know, moving forward in December, we were able to celebrate my birthday and take a little trip to Viña del Mar and go to the beach and eat some yummy food and drink some good wine and just enjoy ourselves for a little weekend trip. And there are a few pictures of that and at the beginning of this video too. And then my sister came in early March to visit, and that was just when coronavirus had just arrived here. I think the first confirmed case, anyway, of coronavirus in Chile was within the first week of March. And so that, at that point, down here, it still felt like a very far away problem. At that point in early March, while my sister was here, I had no idea what was in store for us. Had no idea how this was going to hit in the United States, and just seeing what was happening in the US starting in March and into April and then May, and then, you know, with all these police brutality murder cases happening within that time frame, you know, and then with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and seeing things explode in the US the way that they did, and like seeing so many people out on the streets, just again, it was a time from March into May of disbelief, just like in October. Or part of me, especially when the protests started in May into June in the US, it was just, I felt like I was reliving what happened here in October, but it was far away. Oh, you waking up? She's probably gonna just adjust. Anyway, I felt like I was revisiting and witnessing and reliving what we went through here in October, in terms of like the power dynamics and in terms of the reaction of the powers that be to the protest movement and the violence, and just feeling like we're tapping into the heart of the issue, right? Like, and so once again, like all the anger and frustration and all of these emotions kept bubbling up within me, and I decided to just, you know, try to push forward, and the only way for me to push forward is if I give myself time to emotionally process what is going on. You know, to me it's really sad to see so many people resorting to like conspiracy theories or erratic behavior or selfishness or all these, I don't know, not that I'm a psychologist or anything, but I just see a whole bunch of like people resorting to just denial and resorting to creating these alternative realities in their brain and trying to force those realities onto the external consensus reality, because what's happening in the consensus reality, they can't just handle it. And so there's a lot of that going on, and some of that was happening within my family. I actually had a pretty intense fight with a couple members of my family that I actually removed from Facebook without even like hesitation, just you're done. And that led me to processing my relationship with my parents. And I don't know, I felt like with all these kind of death energies, speaking metaphorically of course, I just allowed myself to surrender to it and ride the wave once again. Another transformative moment. That classic just Sagittarian, I don't know, well, at least speaking for myself, like that is just a go-to strategy for me for dealing with intense change. Whether I'm moving to Chile, or Chile is going through a revolution, or the United States is going through a revolution, you know, I just surrender to it, surrender to the powers that are greater than you, and allow it to transform you. And I had to do that by picking apart and dissecting different relationships in my life and reassessing those relationships, and realize, seeing more clearly than ever the patterns within myself that needed to be changed in terms of my relationships with these different people in my life. I mean, goddamn, after going through all this, you know, and how all of this has affected me personally, but also seeing things on such a global, kind of universal, across the world scale, like, goddamn, it's been a lot. But also, goddamn, I'm proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself. For how I've been able to push forward and just keep getting up every day and keep pushing forward, and just this, it's, I don't know, it's been real. It's been real. It's been real, and I didn't know I had this level of strength in me. Of course, I have an amazing partner who, I don't know if you can pick up this camera's picking up his voice or not, but he's in our little extra bedroom that we've made into an office on a Zoom meeting right now. But like, going through this with him, I'm lucky enough to live with him, and he and I are both lucky enough to be able to work from home. And so, you know, we feel as a partnership, as a relationship, more solid now than ever. And thanks to his support, but also thanks to my own strength, I feel within myself. I don't know if I've ever felt more myself than how I feel right now. I don't know if I've ever felt more solid with myself and who I am. I don't think I've ever been able to truly trust myself the way that I trust myself now. And seeing how I've been able to get through this, and I, knock on wood, so far my family is safe. The people I care about the most are safe and healthy. And, so I know there's a lot of people out there who've had a much worse time going through this than I have. But I think it's been universally tough on everybody across the planet. And it's okay to admit that it's been hard for you. Even you might not, you know, be in the worst case scenario, but it's okay to admit, like, God damn, this is hard. We are all collectively being asked to face, you know, our societal demons, you know, the structural oppression and inequalities that we've built into our worlds, our countries, our societies, right? We're all being asked to bear witness to that and to see the true extent of that on a global scale. And we're also being asked to face collectively death, metaphorical death, but also literal death. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. And kind of just picking back up on that sense of urgency that I was talking about earlier, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and how widespread that was as a sacred rebellion against white supremacy and everything that President Dipshit represents and everything that he feeds into, you know. The time is now. The time is now. The time to dream up new worlds is now. You know? We're seeing everything that's wrong with the way we've put our world together now. Let's fix it. You know? Let's fix it. So I think before this video gets too long, let me talk relatively quickly about the upcoming content I would like to make. In case you weren't aware, I have linked up here below, good lord. My brain's kind of fried. Another reason why it's taken me a while to get around to making this video is because I'm revising one of my chapters for my dissertation. I'm in the middle of putting a second draft of it together before I send it off for more feedback from my committee. And I've told myself and I've told my committee I have until the end of July, and god damn it, it's gonna get sent by the end of July, come hell or high water. And so I've just been focusing a lot of my energies there. Anyhow, up here in the cards, I have linked as well a playlist that I'm calling my Anticolonial Liberation Work playlist, and in that playlist I have the most recent video is my contribution to the discussion of like the Black Lives Matter movement in light of the protest movement in May and June. I talk a lot about colonialism. I see colonialism everywhere. And I define some important terms and talk about or touch on a little bit, you know, why it's important to talk about the origins of white supremacy. And that's actually something that I'm going to get into in more detail in an upcoming video that will be part of that playlist. And so the video I mentioned earlier about my views on how the political is sacred is also within that playlist, as well as other videos I've made over the years. I've just put into that playlist because, for me personally, political engagement and action and protest, it's part and parcel in my spirituality. It's an essential component in my spirituality. Is trying to make this world a better place for my nephews, you know, and trying to make some sort of contribution to this world for justice for more people across the planet in whichever small, tiny way I can, you know. That's an important aspect of my spirituality. It's something I think about and work on consciously daily. or try to. Especially when witnessing revolutions everywhere and a global pandemic. Anyway, so I have that playlist, and some of the upcoming videos I want to make that I'm going to put into that playlist include, like I mentioned, the origins of white supremacy. I think I'm going to try to record that either toward the end of July or sometime in August. And it's a good thing that I'm going to make it in that time frame, because actually that's part of my chapter that I'll be revising, that I'm working on right now, touches on the research I've done on that. And so I'll be able to tap into that to talk about, in terms of the modern, like 1492 to the present day kind of world, where does white supremacy even come from? And so I'm going to talk more about that. I want to talk about this idea of white silence equals violence, and how we can put a name to that. You know, people that I've read, the research I've done, they call it epistemic violence, and that's this idea of silence and erasure and whitewashing history and stuff like that. So I want to get into that in a video. I want to talk about how we can see white supremacy at work in climate change. And I'll probably have my partner, because he knows more about that than I do. I'll have him on here, at least for part of that video, to talk about that. I want to talk more specifically and kind of tell the basic story of U.S. imperialism here in Chile. Exactly how the U.S. supported the dictatorship and helped to put it in power, and you know, in 1973, in the early 1970s. So I want to tell that story since I live here, and since I'll also be doing research about that. I also, in terms of other playlists and other content I want to make, I want to continue my Exploring the Spirit Model of Magick series. I'll have the most recent video linked up here, and through that video you can get to, well actually I'll just have the playlist linked up here. I consider myself one of the kind of labels I identify with is a chaos witch, you know, tapping into the chaos magic approach. And so for over a year, I don't even know how long, I've been consciously working with the spirit model of magic, and so I'll share more of my thoughts on that. I also want to keep talking about my deepening and growing relationship with the goddess Bridget, which has started in March in the middle of this pandemic, and actually Imbolc here in the Southern Hemisphere is coming up. So I'll probably make a video to honor her around that time. I also have some fertility awareness content to catch up on. For the past 2 years, in 2018 and 2019, I had a kind of series going every February to talk about the fertility awareness method, which is my chosen method to prevent unwanted pregnancy. Well, I'll link the playlist up above if you're interested. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do Fertility February this year because things were just crazy. And so I have a few videos that I've been meaning to make for months that I would have put into that playlist for Fertility February. One is my coming out story, as coming out as bi to my family, to people that I hid that from for over a decade. Basically, I want to talk also, I want to share my partner. He knows a lot more about Excel and like mathematical modeling and stuff, and so he actually, through my fertility awareness charts, he collected and organized my data, you know, and he actually on Excel was able to model my average menstrual cycle. And so I want to talk about that and share what my average menstrual cycle looks like. I just think it's kind of interesting that he was able to do that. And then I still owe you guys a Q&A video that I've been meaning to make. since December. I owe you a review of the Roomie Oracle because I know one of my subscribers showed some interest in that, and it's the only Oracle deck I brought with me. I left most of my tarot and Oracle decks in the US, just I didn't have room for them. So I brought the essentials, and the Roomie Oracle was one of them. So I want to kind of gush on and give some love to the Roomie Oracle because it has helped me through so many trials, tribulations, and transitions in life. So I want to dedicate a video to that. I also want to talk about the role of music in my spirituality, and I want to use that video as an opportunity to introduce you guys to some Chilean music. And so that video is going to take some preparation, but I want to include translations of parts of the songs that I think are important. I want to go into the history of the song or the artist. I have 3 songs in mind that I want to talk about, and they're all songs from their more recent contemporary Chilean music. So I want to use that because it's protest, it's very political music. So I listen to those songs on repeat, and I still do. But I especially listened to them on the daily, on repeat, as we were going through the political crisis here in October. And so I kind of want to use those songs as a way to talk about the role of music in my craft. And of course I have other series on my channel too. I have Witching Through Grad School, which I haven't made a video for in a long time, which I should. There's all sorts of content, but I have a good working list, and I want to stick to that list, especially make the videos that are the most important, which is the anti-colonial liberation work videos, talking about white supremacy, and also the my growing relationship with Goddess Bridget. So be on the lookout for those videos here soon, especially around Imbolc time frame here in the southern hemisphere. I'll have a video dedicated to the Goddess Bridget, and then I'll make a video on the history of white supremacy, or on the colonial origins of white supremacy, tapping into my research, right? So those will be the next 2 videos I can make. I'll try to make between 2 and 4 videos a month. That's the best I can do, y'all, in my given, time frame and circumstances. So I hope you understand. But I'll try to stick to that, at least make a couple, 2 videos per month, just to, keep chipping away at that long list of videos I want to make. So, yeah, our first year in Chile, it's been, the best word I can come up with is transformative, and that doesn't even really capture all of it. It's, yeah. We'll see how the second year turns out. Okay, I gotta go. Until next time, many blessings.